Hey, what's up, guys? So we're going to do a real quick example. This is another song that I'm working on. This is pretty much the production stage still figuring out the vocals and then the processing and mixing as I go. And so what I have here is I have just what would be my rough cut that I cut vocals to. So it's not really mastered, as you can see. And then here I have just the drop section, and I just kind of wanted to go through it and show you some of the strategies that we've been implementing and how consistent they are among tracks that I commonly create. So I'm just going to play a little bit of this for you real quick.
Like a slip and slide.
So some things you might notice, I can definitely hear a little bit of low end conflict in the main bass and the drums, and that's okay. We're not really going to dive into that. What I wanted to show you is how in this section here, I think there's three different instances of layers for this drop section. So let's turn this off and let's turn this on and let's see what's going on. First thing you'll notice is we have a few plugins here on the master. This is just an EQ. I pick and choose different EQs all the time just to see which one sounds right for the song. And in this case here, you can see we're doing our bump or our cut, I'm sorry, in and around 300, and then again we're protecting the highs. Here we're doing that same thing as we did before. Remember where we tamed the low end, just the low end frequencies, and then we just retain our high end frequencies. Again, we have our Pro MB. This looks like, is this just regular, or is this is from an external source. This has to do with the kick or the drum section in the actual full session. So we're not going to really cover that, but again, more of the common things that we've seen. So in here, let's just take a listen to this just soloed real quick. Okay, just doing some little inspections here. So we do have 3 layers, technically 4, because we have a low end bass section, which was up here. This is going to be our bass line, okay? And we also have our tags, but we're not going to really focus on that. We already talked about that type of stuff. Similar things, compression, a little bit of limiting, and then we have our side chain. We know we want to make these wider. Again, notice the side chain is just happening to the low end content here, not the high end content. We don't need to revisit those conversations. So we have a main lead, and then we have this beefier low mid lead to accompany it to give it weight. So let's take a listen to just this section here. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. We're separating the frequency ranges. You can audibly hear where the different frequencies are sitting. We have our low mid, and then we have our high sound, which is our more interesting sound. And we can cruise through here just kind of lightly and just touch upon the things that are very common. Here we have a high-end frequency protection. We'll just call it that, where we're cutting the highs. Our shaper box again, protecting mainly the low end, but this goes all the way up to 300. Okay, so we're side chaining up to 300 on this sound, probably because we have another bass that's actually filling out the sound even more. So that's probably why. Then we have our boost here for our transients on spiff. We also have our EQ. We are protecting, and we're doing it both mid and side. I could have just done this in stereo, but maybe I was playing around with different options for the side spectrum and the mids. And these are off, so they don't count. These are off. I don't know if they're automated. Doesn't matter. Some of this stuff is production type stuff. And then we have our gate, which we talked about, our Pro C, and then this is just going to be mostly our distortion, our widening, and just our coloring for the instrument. Not that it's not important. I'm sure all this stuff is important, but some of this stuff is production stuff. Like this here, this is texture. This is going to just give it more bite, give more bite to the sound. Let's do a quick group, and let's just hear with and without. So all you're hearing there, the sound actually gets bigger, obviously, because we're taking away the EQs and things that we've used to sculpt the sound. All the things that I've shown you in the past track and instruments that help us shape the tone to work with the other instruments. Now, if this was the only instrument, this entire rack would be different. I think we can move on from here. We're not going to stick around here for too long. I'm just going to do some double checking here on this entire group. Yes, again, same stuff, cutting the mids, cutting the lows. If you notice here, even though we have a low end, this is actually probably where some of the problem is that I was hearing in this section here with the low end confliction. Let's do a quick test. Let's go ahead and let's listen to the whole group, and let's see what happens when you bring this up to like 100. I mean, I feel like that might have solved the issue. I think I would need to spend more time looking at it and analyzing what's going on, but that's something that I'd overlooked because I'm still in the production stage of the song. So what we have here is all the main instruments minus the sub. So you can't probably even hear very much. I mean, I can definitely hear it, but maybe you don't hear it because whatever reason, maybe you're on certain speakers. I don't know. My point is, it's not even a big difference like in quality of sound because there isn't a prominent low end in that sound, but those overlapping frequencies with the low end of the bass, which sounds like this, they're conflicting. So we have our Pro MB standard things here. This is actually not side chaining to anything. This is actually just pushing down the low end. So though we have this EQ, and though I said that I wasn't hearing much of a difference going back and forth, right? Let me put this back where it should go. There we go. This is basically lowering the volume, but I gotta be honest, now hearing it, it's been a while since I've opened this track, we definitely need something like this here to cut those lows, because I was compressing it at the end in the final chain, especially after this reverb, but it definitely needs to be cut because we don't want to conflict with the low end bass here. And as a matter of fact, this low end here, let's look at the spectrum on this because there's a lot of mids in it. I'm going to use the regular imager for this. Okay, so you can see some width here. Also, it looks like there's in the same group, which this shouldn't be. It looks like there's the tag. If that's correct. That looks like the tag, yeah. So we don't want the tag to be mono. I'm assuming this is our bass, so this would be mono. I'm probably already doing it here. And look how I'm doing the mono. I'm making sure that the low frequencies are in mono, and then I'm leaving everything just above like 140, 120 if it wants to be a little bit wider, because it's really the sub bass that the ear cannot define where the actual direction of it is from unless it's put into mono. Just a little side note for you there. Okay, so now let's go down to this bass down here, which again you can see we're already cutting this, and then we have a transient shaper on it. I'm doing the same thing I did to the other one, where I'm just pushing the sustain of it just to make it sound more full. So this has already been flattened down. This isn't doing very much at all. It's just, I don't know what it is with the EQ and Ableton. Even if you do a cut, sometimes it still shows frequency down here. Maybe it doesn't cut it fully, or it's not cutting, like, I don't know what the deal was with it. So sometimes I see more frequency and I cut it again. Probably should just stick to using the Pro L, but you can also just use your ears and it sounds fine. So these two, having the low end cut out of them, are enabling them to actually work together. I don't see that I have any delays on each instrument right now. There we go, let's pull that up. But I'm willing to bet it'd probably sound better if I took this section here, this high, and I delayed it a little bit. Let's check that out. That's going to be a production choice at that point. You can either choose to stick with it or leave it. Another thing too is, let's see the width on this instrument right here. So we can spread this. So that's pretty wide. I'm going to just open this real quick and let's see what this imager says about this instrument. Okay, same stuff again, you guys. Like, using the sound spectrum can really help everything. Like, we're pushing those low end sounds to mono, and then I'm using this to stereoize the low mids just a little bit more, so they're not true, like they're really mono. This is just, look at where this is set. We're not even getting frequency range in here. I bet you if I solo this, let's see what happens. Come on, solo, dude. Okay, it's seeing it here because it's at this point in the chain, but since we have this EQ, we're probably not getting much of that. Okay, so I'm doing my due diligence, but then I'm getting rid of it here. But the point is, this is like the frequency spectrum that this sound really shines in, and we're making it a little bit wider so that this sound, that massive, let me make sure it's soloed. Yeah, let's make sure just the massive solo, yeah, and our sub bass are able to work together. Let's hear those two together. Okay, so to me, when this is all said and done, mix wise, it's gonna work really well together because, you know, I'm putting the instruments in the right places in the frequency spectrum, or the sound spectrum, my bad. So that's something you definitely want to take away from this entire tutorial is you have X amount of frequency spectrum in the speaker. I feel like every instrument should have its own area in the duration that it's playing in. So if it's in the drop or the breakdown, these are all common things. If you could just wrap your mind around mid-side EQ and then knowing where the common places are you're going to be doing your cuts and boosts, like if it needs a little bit more high, maybe around 12K is good. If you need a cut, it's probably going to be around 300 to 400, maybe 600. Okay, and then if a certain instrument like the drums are in 100 to 200, and then the highs of the drums are around 2K and above, you can cut around 600, 500, and 1K just by looking at a spectrum. This is going to make room for all the other instruments to have their frequencies, their main frequencies, shine. And then when you get into the mastering section, it's going to be a lot easier for you. So I just wanted to throw this in here just to kind of show you something that's a little bit more raw and less polished. I hope you guys are making racks, and I hope you guys are making, settings and then labeling them so you could just drag and drop them on tracks and groups and setting everything up collectively so that when you're working, you could just work more efficiently, because nothing slows you down more than sitting there and having to think about which EQ should I use, and just pull in a freaking group, a rack of stuff, turn it on and off, see what works, what doesn't, tweak a few knobs, and then move on. Know where things are in the spectrum and help them all work together to make your speakers work less, giving you more power. Just think of it like that. Too many things layered right on top of each other in the same places is going to be harder for your speakers to do the work. I have some big speakers over here, the Adams A77Xs, and I have the little ones, the Adams A7Xs. So when I play things on the Adams A77Xs, they usually sound pretty good. But then once you get into the car, which are going to have smaller size speakers, or I play them on the Adams A7Xs or on my computer speakers, that's where the trouble begins, because those speakers don't have enough strength to handle all of that information. Hopefully this helps you guys. This was just a little thing I wanted to throw in, and hopefully you can take something from it. Let's jump into the next one. We're going to focus on the vocals, and then we're going to jump into a few different things about different ways you can mix your songs, and then we'll talk about the master, and then hopefully by this point your songs are absolutely slapping.